I want to talk about Trump's infiltration of the DC Circuit Court of Appeals and how their emergency three-judge panel, if you will, that's hearing some of these direct appeals right now with these Trump judges are really causing significant harm to law and order. You've got a lot of, district judges across the country who, in the face of threats and violence and lawlessness by the Trump regime, are doing the job that federal judges are supposed to do, follow the law and make tough decisions, and not decisions that are anti-Trump because they're anti-Trump. They're making decisions that are pro-law and order and following what the law is. But we're seeing these chokeholds, if you want to call it that, at these various points in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals right now with this three-judge panel. And we'll talk about how this three-judge panel is kind of randomly construed or formed every certain amount of days, and the rulings that they're making right now as the Trump DOJ, brings everything to them. And then ultimately the United States Supreme Court. We've been talking about this a lot on the MeidasTouch network, using kind of procedural language. They've been enabling Donald Trump to pull off whatever Trump wants to pull off. And the district court judges will make rulings enjoining Donald Trump from certain unlawful conduct. Donald Trump will immediately rush up to the circuit courts, then ultimately to the Supreme Court. And what we see almost in every case so far, almost, the Supreme Court then making a ruling that enjoins, stops, pauses the injunction by the district court. In other words, allowing the status quo, which is what Trump says the status quo is at the time, not what the district court says existed before Donald Trump's unlawful decision. And that's what we've seen kind of repeat itself over and over again. The most egregious example we just happened at the end of this week with the DC Circuit Court of Appeals with respect to Judge Boasberg, who's the chief judge of the Washington, D.C. District Court. Well-respected, well-regarded, never viewed as a partisan guy his entire career. He's the chief judge. And while he's been the chief judge, and rather before he's been the chief judge, he served on intelligence courts. He's led in national intelligence courts. I mean, he is everything you want and what a federal judge is supposed to be, whether you're liberal, conservative, whatever, what have you. And, he's been making rulings, appropriate rulings, based on Donald Trump's violations of all of these laws and how Trump's treated migrants and sent people to concentration camps in El Salvador, how the Trump regime ignored Boasberg's initial order saying, don't send these people to CONTEMPT without a hearing. Let's find out so you don't get it wrong. And we know that was the right order because we know the Trump regime sent people to this concentration camp in El Salvador who didn't belong there, who should never have been there at all in the first place. And they've now been dispersed across the country. They've told atrocities of being tortured and sexually assaulted and horrific things that could have been avoided. And all of that happened now in the name of the United States. And Boasberg tried to stop it. And now Boasberg was just trying to get to the bottom of who are the people now at the DOJ who are responsible for sending migrants to a place they shouldn't have been sent, where they were tortured and sexually assaulted and put in concentration camps. And now Trump-appointed judges throughout the judiciary, specifically here the DC Circuit, are basically saying, no, we don't want to hold the DOJ lawyers and others in the Trump administration accountable. You can't do that. You don't have the jurisdiction. You don't have the right to do that, Boasberg. I want to bring in Harry Litman. Harry, what's going on in the DC Circuit here?
Yeah, I found it really disheartening, Ben. Boasberg, as you say, even though they've, Bondi and others have tried to trash him, super respected judge, calls it straight, has the respect of his whole court. And remember, who's his court? The very judges who tried all the January 6 cases, saw them face to face, only to have Trump come in and free them all in a stroke of the pen after he'd been president for a couple minutes. But Boasberg, to his credit, and I think he did it not just for himself, But as the chief judge of a court that, really has seen a lot of squirrely behavior by the Trump administration said, man, it sure seems like I gave an order and you disobeyed that order. And by the way, as an aside, it sure does seem, and we have these whistleblowers, they came out in the Bove administration saying Boasberg said this, and Bove said, those planes are going to El Salvador no matter what. That's not very hard to construe. That means violate his orders. He's also at the same time, consider we have to say F you to the courts. And everybody in the department knew what that meant when it came out. He said, oh, this is the F you moment. Now, Boasberg easily then, the administration tried again and again to muddy it up. This is a common strategy and say eventually, oh, get off it, Boasberg, just forget about this for now. Let's move forward, etc. And Boasberg, to his real credit, was like, no, he issued his order where you have to give them due process. That was partially reversed. They make it seem like he was totally wrong. That's not true. The Supreme Court affirmed the basic idea, said you need to do it by habeas corpus, however. But Boasberg really was firm in saying we got to get to the bottom of whether or not the administration should be held in contempt because they violated orders. And, it's about as important a question as it gets. If we have in front of us an administration that is ready, willing, and able to violate court orders, that's the sort of the most important question to the whole. Are we at the edge of an authoritarian society? Is the whole republic threatened? And Boasberg, to his total credit, said, I'm just going to figure this out. Then they tried, they tried state secrets. They said they did different kinds of holding, different kinds of affidavits that said nothing. They just wanted to sort of blah, 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 and get past it. And Boasberg wouldn't let him. And it was the sort of shining example of somebody is going to make a definitive determination of whether these guys were rogues, hold their feet to the fire, and have it established. And had he established it, it would have been, I think, a really important and kind of, part of the history and culture of who these guys are. And remember, all Boasberg was doing, and this is what the D.C. Circuit, the two judges, Katsas and Rao, the Trump appointees, kept him from doing in dissent. Judge Pillard said, are you guys crazy giving a mandamus here? But all he was doing is finding facts to determine whether they should be held in contempt. How you could say that is an illegitimate purpose. If you like, we can talk about those opinions, but I don't even think we have to, because what is, to me, it's rare to set things up in a way that it can be sort of pristine for not for America. To hear from a guy who, whatever they say, is a total upstanding guy that I think, would not get reversed. Yep, sure enough, these are the scofflaws we're dealing with. And by the way, the D.C. Circuit took a couple days stay and had it go for months. What were those months? When Bove's confirmation was pending, and had Boasberg gone forward and made these findings, what that might have meant for Bove's confirmation is a now, buried question, and doesn't make sense that they kept it way longer than you're supposed to with that kind of stay. So anyway, to me, even trying to credit the opinion by the D.C. Circuit, even acknowledging the possibility, and I think there is a strong possibility that the ACLU, the prisoners, will try to bring it en banc. The court overall tilts Democratic. I hate that I'm even thinking in those terms, but that's what you're totally driven to unavoidably. Even if it's reversed, even if it goes to the Supreme Court, which doesn't change it, the really important opportunity for a kind of pristine determination of who they are and what they're doing, and a sort of forceful argument from the nation, from everyone, that you can't do this shit. I mean, MAGA in polls, more than half say you can't just violate court orders. That is the opportunity, and it was a real opportunity. They did, in fact, I think, the evidence is pretty strong, violate the orders. And now instead, it's just, I think, been lost as an opportunity to make a point that's hard to make, hard to come by. And it's just a shame. Not to mention, as Pillard said in dissent, you took this total upstanding judge that everyone respects, and because you had to come up with some examples or you had to come up with an argument to say we can mandamus him, which is way, as you know, Ben, way huge kind of showing. You trashed him. And that really sucks. And it really does.
The one other point I'll make, Harry, is that this more than anyone, the DOJ, their lawyers are all leaving. Like the people who are defending Trump's policy, there's a mass exodus. So frankly, you now just have the most extremist people there, the worst of the worst, there. And frankly, some people who just aren't really good lawyers there. But it doesn't matter in a sense, because they keep getting bailed out by the Trump judges, at the circuit court. So it's like they can be horrible, file briefs that any lawyer would look at and go, what are you even filing? But, for the Trump's view, it's like, why do we even need a DOJ at all? You just put, 8 lawyers that could staff the whole thing or whatever it is, put some brain rot on paper, file whatever, that would normally just even be sanctionable to look at. Don't worry, our buddies will bail us out down the line. I feel there's an element of that taken. I
think there is, and the story just generally, it looked bad, like really bad as of a few weeks ago, but you could have still hoped that it's a Department of Justice that is by and large pursuing its normal mission with a sort of satellite practice of political fix-it and crazy ass arguments for Donald Trump. These last couple weeks, it's the sort of the velocity, the shock and awe. There must be half a dozen outrageous things the department has done. It's now looking to me like the department, 110,000 strong, although, as you say, so many people are leaving, had its mission as a whole reconfigured into how can we help Donald Trump and the Republican Party lately. It's just heartbreaking for anyone who ever worked there. And of course, an atrocity and abomination for the Constitution and the rule of law. Bad, bad, bad days here.
Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Subscribe to all of them. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Ben.
I'll chat with you soon.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.